Hi there, a very warm welcome to you, and this is Spotlight Business. My name is Philip Nanfuri. The channel is MX24. I want to say a very big thank you for joining us this fine Tuesday evening, and a very big thank you to all those who made time last week Thursday with our interview with the first Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Maxwell Pokafari. The reviews we've received post that interview has been tremendous, and I want to say a big thank you to all those who produced the show and those who made time to watch and give me feedback, both publicly and then personally also. But tonight, we have another important person within the financial services space. He oversees the capital market. His name is Reverend Daniel Ogbarmey Tetteh. I'm sure you know him. He's the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, what we call SEC or SEC. And we'll be with him in a few minutes to go through certain pertinent issues with regards to Ghana's securities industry development. But before we begin, let's take a snapshot of his profile.
Reverend Daniel Ogbarmey Tetteh is currently the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission and Chairman of the West African Security Regulators Association. He is also the Chairman of the Ghana Investment Securities Institute and a member of the Board of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority and also a member of the Financial Stability Advisory Council in Ghana. His working experience has revolved around lecturing and investment banking. Reverend Ogbarmey Tetteh spent over 20 years in investment banking with Databank Group, where he played various roles, including head of asset management and head of research. Reverend Ogbarmey Tetteh lectured briefly in marketing at the University of Ghana Business School from 1996 to 1998 and was also a facilitator in case study in corporate finance class at Harvard Business School in 2008. Reverend Ogbarmey Tetteh holds a BSc in administration with first class honors and an MBA from the University of Ghana Business School. He also has a postgraduate diploma in corporate finance and management from Sorbonne University in Paris and an honorary doctorate in management and Christian leadership from International Christian University. Reverend Ogbarmey Tetteh is a senior pastor of the New Creation Chapel International, a charismatic church here in Accra.
So that's your guest for tonight, Reverend Daniel Ogbarmey Tetteh. He's the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. And he's to my left. I want to introduce him and thank him for joining us this fine evening. Rev, thank you very much.
My pleasure, Philip.
I'm sure you've had a very packed day, but you've been able to find time. You're able to find time for us.
Almost back to back, but the grace of God keeps us going.
We thank God. We thank God. So, for our viewers, before we delve into the nitty-gritties of the securities industry, I think it's important to find out how Rev has been doing. He's been very busy these past few years, but I think it's important to find out what he does when he's not managing the Securities and Exchange Commission and stuff like that. Apart from him being a reverend, what other things does he get up to? We'll find out shortly. But Rev, I want to ask you, since you took the post some 3 years ago, let's call me your headmaster and you are my student, and I'm supposed to conduct an assessment and you're supposed to tell me how you have fared in the course of the assignment I've given you. How do you think you have fared as DG of the SEC?
Well, I think that I have done well in terms of moving the Commission towards becoming a top-tier securities market regulator in Africa. One of the first things we did was to tighten the mission of the Commission and then also simplify the vision so that it would be easy for people to rally around. And then we also crystallized the values that become, if you like, what guides our behavior and our conduct at the Commission. Now, you may also know that the Securities Industry Act 929 was passed in 2016. But to give full effect to the Act, you need to work on a number of regulations that would support it. So in the first 2.5 years, we've done quite a bit of work on putting in place the various, we call it guidelines, that would give effect to the new provisions in the Securities Industry Act. And I can tell that, for instance, we've been able to issue guidelines on private funds, to govern private equity and venture capital. We've also been able to issue real estate and investment trust guidelines, which is an interesting and important asset class, if you like. So we've been able to do that. We actually have a number of guidelines that we'll be issuing this month. Okay. But the point is, if you have the act, you need to, have the regulations or the guidelines that support it.
Operationalize.
Exactly, okay. Exactly. And I think also I can say that in the time that I have been at the SEC, I think SEC has enjoyed more visibility because of some of the interventions exactly. that we have brought about, So I think if you are a liberal and fair headmaster,
I think
you'll give me some good marks.
Yeah, I think I should give you a B+, or you would, or
an A-.
So you just mentioned rightly that the SEC has become more visible. I like that, but with visibility also comes the negative sides and then the positive sides. And absolutely. To be honest with you, Reverend, you've seen the way personally. This is tough for me to say, but you've been bashed over the course of time for some of the actions you've taken. Not only you, but particularly the Bank of Ghana also and its leadership. Last week, we were privileged to have the First Deputy Governor here. Sometimes when you look back to when you were appointed, do you tell yourself that, should I have taken this job? Should I have gone into ministry full-time? Do you have any regrets coming on board the SEC? Because you don't only do the SEC work. You're on the Financial Stability Advisory Council, you're on the MPRA board and stuff like that. Do you sometimes look as, what, I shouldn't have taken this job. I would have been better off. Do you have those thoughts?
Not at all. And let me share a secret which I think many people do not know. So my predecessor, he retired because he hit the age 60.
That's Mr. Idu
Ananientwi in 2016. So in the run-up to his retirement, the position was advertised. So I actually applied for the job in September. A lot of people do not know that, So, and this is before elections, so before this current administration came into power. Yeah, so, I had said to myself that after over 20 years in investment banking with Data Bank, once the opportunity came up, I thought, well, it would be nice to move from one side of the table to the other side. So it was a choice I made. It wasn't like something that was forced on me. And so I have no regret at all, and I can tell you I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And like you said, yes, I know I have been, I like to say I have been abused and traduced. But, I think for me, the important thing is, am I doing the right thing? Am I achieving the mandate that has been handed over to me in my position as the Director General? Of course, I'm human. I will not get it right. We all make mistakes. But the important thing is keeping your focus on what you need to do and then, doing your best. And I'm doing my best.
Okay. A last personal question before we move on to the matters at hand.
Right.
You are a senior pastor at New Creation Chapel International. Right. So I would say you are a man of God, thick man of God. If today the world ended and then the heavens came down and then Christ asked Reverend Ogbarmey that, do you think you've done well? You just mentioned, but if your maker was before you and said, look, have you done well with the work I've given you? What would you tell Christ?
I will confidently say that I did my best because, Philip, I can tell you that one of the things that characterize what I do is to do my best in whatever situation I find myself in, to apply myself, as hard as I can, as well as I can. And, as a pastor, you need to look at how you're giving direction to your flock, how you're feeding the flock. You need to wait on God and know the state of your flock to give the right kind of direction, the right kind of feeding and all of that. You need to come up with programs. You must be there when people are rejoicing, like when they have babies or they are going to get married. You must be there when people are mourning and so on and so forth. And to the best of my ability, I give my best, to the extent that sometimes my family, immediate family, that is, they don't get, a lot of me. But I think that one of the things I try to do is to emphasize on quality time. Yeah. So the time that I have available that I'm able to spend with them, I try to make the best out of it. When my dad was alive. He passed in 2008, but he used to make this comment that even though I work late hours and I come home late, there was this strong bond that I had with the kids, because while quantity is important, I think quality is critical.
So spend quality time with your family. For our viewers and listeners out there, Rev, I want us to jump into the main issues, what I call the capital market issues. And the first part of our discussion will focus on the recent revocation and bailout. But before I move into the substantive question, I want our viewers and listeners to look at the chronology of events since last year, 8 November 2019 till date. There have been certain actions that have transpired within the SEC. And I want to start off from just a brief one, just to keep us up to speed, because a lot has happened. Now, on 8 November 2019, we had the revocation of the licenses of 53 fund management firms for a number of infractions pursuant, and the SEC carried out this action pursuant to the Act. That's the Securities Industry Act 2016, Act 929. Now, on the 11th of November, the SEC, together with its authorized agent, they gave us details about the validation process and specific locations where investors can present their claims to be validated. Then 18th November, the branches of CBG, that's Consolidated Bank, were open to receive your claims or the claims from the clients of the affected fund management companies, such as your evidence of your investment amounts, investment certificates, account statements, etc. Then 18th December, submission of claims was scheduled to end. However, on 20th December, we got a notice from the SEC that it was going to be extended from Wednesday, 18th December to Wednesday, 15th January. So they brought it from last year into this year. Then on 28th August, we got a release from the SEC, what I call Release 1, about updates on SEC revocations and bailout, which I'll come to shortly. Then on 2nd September, we got Update 2. The SEC sought to clarify some issues in that release. So now, what I'm going to do for us is to move into the numbers with regards to the whole discussion. Now, on the 8th of November, the SEC revoked the licenses of 53 fund management firms. Now, I want to get this very, very spot on for you. So I'll be referring to my notes on my tab. Now, after they took the exercise, revoking the licenses of these 53 fund management firms, certain things happened because the SEC doesn't have all the powers as Bank of Ghana has in its law to do certain things. So they operate within their law. That's the Securities Industry Act. Now, what they did was to notify the Registrar of Companies or the Registrar General to petition the courts for orders to commence the official liquidation of the 53 fund management firms. Then they appointed the agent to take copies of records, lock up premises, and secure access of these fund management firms. Then they mandated the agents that the SEC appointed to receive claims from the clients of the affected companies and acknowledge receipts of this. Then they went on to mandate the agents to conduct validation of you and I, our claims that we brought to them. Then the last one, that's number 5, they engaged the government, that's through the Ministry of Finance, on a bailout package, which they came out to announce on 28 August that the Registrar General or the Registrar of Companies will be given announcements and not them. Registrar General, Registrar of Companies. I know some of us were discussing that the SEC was going to, per the law and per the instructions of the directive, it was the Registrar General. Now, on the numbers part, 53 fund management firms had their licenses revoked. Out of those 53, 8 appealed against the revocation at the SEC's Administrative Hearing Committee. Only 3 were successful. So if you take the 3 out of the 53, we have 50 firms now who have had the licenses revoked. Out of the 50 firms, 3 did not have claims filed against them. So we had 47 left. As at August 2020, there were a total of 98,820 claims valued at 10.83 billion Ghana cedis. Now, the SEC tells us that they had full access to the records of 40 of the fund management companies, partial access to 1, and no access at all to 6. Then it went on to notify the registrar. The registrar began petitioning the courts, and so far, 22 of these firms have, how would I say it, Rev? They've been...
Yeah, under official liquidation. The courts have granted the
exactly.
liquidation order.
So that's just by way of the numbers for you. Now, Rev, the big question we're asking here is, where are we now with this update? Since your second update came on 2nd September, Have there been any new developments to this space? And in your submission, I want you to re-emphasize the fact that you, the SEC, because from what I read, you are not the one supposed to do the payment or deal with anything. It's the Registrar General. Please square this circle for us.
Okay, thank you, Philip. The Act 929 gives us certain powers. Now, when it comes to fund management companies, we do not have the power to appoint a receiver. When it comes to broker-dealer firms, we can. Now, the firms here were all fund management firms. So the only option, legal option, available to us was to notify the Registrar General, which we did, to go to court. So it's the Registrar General, in her capacity as the official liquidator, who made the liquidation petition to the court. So the court granted the liquidation order to the official liquidator, not to SEC. Okay. It's because the pathway that we had to use, and that was the only pathway, was a liquidation pathway. So what we had to do was notify the Registrar General, and then she went ahead. And then what we did also was to appoint an agent to receive claims and then also to validate the claims. Actually, the official liquidator, after being given the liquidation order, would now invite all creditors to file claims. So it means that what we did was to even accelerate the process, because we got an agent to receive the claims and then also to do the validation. So you find that after the official liquidator was given the orders, liquidation orders, she announced it and she invited claims. And she did say that if you've already submitted claims to the agent we appointed, you don't have to. But if you didn't, then you can file the claim. So it's the official liquidator that manages companies under official liquidation. It is not the SEC. So that's why we kept saying that it's the OL, or the official liquidator, that is driving the process of liquidation. Ordinarily, what a liquidator would do would be to find assets of the entities, and then the official liquidator or the liquidator will meet with all the creditors. And when we talk about creditors, it's not only, in this case, we are talking about investors or clients who invested with these firms. But there are other creditors like suppliers, even employees, because we understand that some of the employees of some of the firms hadn't been paid for 6 months, some 12 months, and so on and so forth. They are all creditors. The GRA, SNIT. So the liquidator meets all the creditors and says, okay, this is what I have, and this is how I'm going to distribute it. I have this, hierarchy that the law has given that I'm going to use. Okay, so typically that is what must happen. The difference here is that we also engage the government while the Registrar General was pursuing the liquidation orders. We engaged the government through the Ministry of Finance for a bailout package, okay, which has been granted. So it means that the affected investors can now benefit from the bailout package, but it's all under the management of the official liquidator, because it's a liquidation pathway. Okay. So like you said, it's important for that clarity to be there. Our job, if you like, stops after we've taken the decision of revoking the license and then notifying the official liquidator. What we also did was even to secure the premises as a way of securing access, getting records and all of that. But it's a liquidation pathway, so it's the official liquidator that manages the entire process. But of course, we are there in support. Okay. So that's just to bring some clarity. But I think you were asking, okay, I think you want to ask.
So let me just chip this in. So just for clarity again.
Yes.
It's the official liquidator who would handle even this bailout package that's coming from government.
Absolutely.
Or it will be you.
No. Official liquidator. Yes, because okay. we are not, it's the companies are under official liquidation. Okay. So SEC, we don't have any business. We don't have the mandate to liquidate firms. Okay. We have the mandate to give licenses, regulate, and all of that. But this is the turf of the official liquidator.
Okay. And then Rev, a very important question I want to ask. We saw how the banking sector one went, and we saw that post the cleanup, you are well aware that the Ghana Deposit Protection Corporation has been established. Now, my question is a two-in-one. One, if there was no government bailout, what would have been the outcome now? I'm sure it would have been to wait for the liquidation to expire, which can take several years. I read on your website that some of them have taken as far 20 years for a liquidation to be done, decades. Two, in how we have the Ghana Deposit Protection Corporation, for the capital markets, what is the framework in place for something post a failure of some of these companies? If you understand where my question is.
I do, but you had asked earlier on about where we are. Yes. Yeah, since I don't know whether you want me to answer that, please and so then I'll come to.
Yes, we have 3 questions to answer for.
Right. Yeah. So I think you're right that we gave an update where we indicated that as at the end of July, when the legal vacation kicked in, the court had granted the official liquidator 22 liquidation orders. Mm. And then we also did say that we had full access to the records of 40 of the firms, 40 out of 47, because like you rightly said, 3 didn't have any claims filed against them. And then we did say that there was a government bailout and it will be rolled out in phase 1 or in phases. So the phase 1 would be the firm that had received or that the court had granted the liquidation order. And, you know, with that first statement, there were some misconceptions. That's what we came up with, the second one, to clarify that the government bailout is for all affected investors, not only those that had received or had those that the liquidation orders have been granted at the time. Okay. You know, so that clarity has to be there. That is for everyone. It's just a question of time. We had explained that the bailout is rolled out after 2 conditions are fulfilled: when your claims are validated and when the liquidation order has been granted. Okay, so that now the legal vacation has been on and ended in September. So it's actually October this week that essentially the courts have started sitting. So we are expecting that we'll be getting some more of the liquidation orders granted, because they were at various stages before the legal vacation hit. So in terms of liquidation orders, there is nothing new that we can report as we speak. Okay. Now, in terms of the validation of the claims, we did say that there were we had partial access to 1, and then no access to the remaining 6. So the partial one had to do with Black Shield, formerly Gold Coast. And I think even in the press release, we indicated that we had in August, I think it was the 16th or 17th of August, there about middle of August, we had received the server with the help of a law enforcement agency. So we have access to the records, and validation is ongoing. It's not completed for the
customers of Black Shield.
Yes, but what we have told our agent is to accelerate the process. So I can tell you that they've even employed some more people, because we are putting pressure on them, because we are aware that the number of investors or clients with Gold Coast is significant. Indeed, if you do the numbers, they represent about 83-84% of the total clients affected in this whole cleanup exercise. So we've asked our agent to accelerate the validation, and I'm satisfied with the reports I've been getting every week. And I know that sooner than later they'll be able to report to us that it's fully done. So what will be left is the liquidation petition. Okay. And I'm also aware that the liquidation petition has been served on Black Shield. Okay. And so it's in motion. Okay. So both the liquidation order or the liquidation petition, and then the validation of the claims where Gold Coast or Black Shield is concerned, it is ongoing. It's ongoing. Now, there were 2 companies that we still do not have access. First Bank, and it's simply because they went to court when we revoked the license, they logged that they didn't cooperate at all, so we didn't get any data at the beginning. And then when the court threw out their application for judicial review, they went to file an injunction, for us not to take any further action because they intend to appeal, I guess, go to the Court of Appeal. So in the case of First Bank, we don't have access. Now, the remaining firms, there were issues, I'll call them administrative issues, and thankfully we have been able to clear a number of those issues. Things to do, let's say, the firm were owing rent for for some months. So when we locked up, then the landlords also locked up, and they're not going to give you access until you have come to some settlement of sorts with them. So those are what I call administrative issues. But my information is that we are making progress, and I think the validation of the claims of aside the two, First Bank and then Omega, that we do not have access. The remaining ones, I think they are almost about 98% done with the validation of the claim. So just to let you know that in terms of validation of claims, there's also progress from the last time that we came out. But the other one I want to highlight is what the official liquidator has done with regard to the bailout process. So by law, once she has an order, once she has to hold creditor meetings. So creditor meetings is where all the creditors of the firm, and I've explained that in the case of these companies, it's not only the clients or investors, but all the various creditors. Yeah. So I know that the official liquidator held creditor meetings for 20 out of the 22 firms. And let me explain why she did that. Now, after you get the liquidation order, the order has to be gazetted before you can begin the process. And as at the time of the legal vacation, she had gazetted 20. So she organized the creditor meeting for the creditors of these 20 firms. She did it company by company using the Zoom platform, because of the COVID-19 realities. Now, after the creditor meeting, so she had to give them a statement, something like a statement of affairs and how she was going to proceed with the liquidation process. And then after the creditor meeting, she also held class meetings. And for the class meetings, she singled out the investors of all these firms. And for that one, she held 2 sessions. Because it was a class meeting, she could put them all together from the 20 firms. So she held 2 class meetings for the affected investors. And that was where she explained the details of the government bailout. The fact that it's your validated claim that government is giving you the bailout, and that for you to benefit from the bailout, you need to assign your interests or your claims to the government, because government is effectively coming to say, well, here is money based on your validated claims. So whatever right you have against the firms, government must take it, so that the government would now deal with the official liquidator. So she had to explain all that to the investors, and then she also had to explain that there was an agreement that they needed to execute, where they assign their rights or their claims to the government, because government will now be the one to face her as official liquidator, because government is providing the bailout for the investors. So she outlined that to them, and also gave them the information about the structure of the bailout, the fact that government was using a special purpose vehicle, which will operate as a mutual fund that has got 2 tiers, tier 1 with the liquid component, and then tier 2 with the investment component. So she provided details and also indicated to the different categories of claimants what to expect in the tier 1, which is the liquid portion, and then what to expect in the tier 2, which is the investment portion. So then she gave them, the instruction that a microsite has been created because of COVID, to minimize, in-person interactions. She directed them to a microsite that had been created under the Registrar General's website, where they were to go, and then once they, read through the agreement, then they execute it. She did explain to them that before they go to the site, each investor was going to get a claim ID and then the validated claim. So when you get your claim ID, then you can go to the site and then execute the agreement. Now, when you get the claim ID and you get your validated claim, and you are not satisfied with your validated claim, the instruction was that go back to the agent that we appointed and say that, agent, I filed this claim. I think what I'm seeing is not right. I have further and better particulars. So, you need to do some reconciliation and then correct it. Okay, so she had to explain all of that and then gave some time for investors to go to the site to execute the agreement. And then she indicated that, by the end of September, provided that people have executed the agreement, those who have executed would have the accounts created for them for the Tier 1 and the Tier 2 in the SPV credited according to the validated claim and in line with the formula that had been prescribed for them. So I am aware that a number of the clients have done that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, for the 20 firms, the number of claimants, and I'll call them claimants because you can have one person with multiple claims. So the number of claimants is a little over 5,000, and I'm aware that as at today, about 3,000 have executed the agreement. I'm also aware that somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 claimants have contacted the agent, that's PwC, raising issues about the claims that they received. So that is what has happened, so far.
I think from a layman's perspective, today I'll call myself a layman, it's a mouthful. It's a lot of procedure process and then procedural stuff. But Reverend, hold on for me. I want to take a quick commercial break. This is Spotlight Business. My name is Philip Nanfuri. My guest, Reverend Ogbarmey Tetteh. He's the Director on the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back from the break. This is Spotlight Business. My name is Philip Nanfuri. My guest, Reverend Ogbarmey Tetteh, Director of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Before we went on the break, he was taking us through, and I must say, quite the word just escaped me, methodologically, if that's the right word. Step by step, he was taking us through. But it's a lot of information to chew on, and I'm sure in the coming months, there will be notices on the SEC website, as well as the Registrar General, Registrar of Companies. So please keep your eyes peeled. I know this is a very trying time for everybody. Sometimes, even as a presenter, you can't put in your own story, your own emotion on air. But one way or the other, we're all affected by this. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for what's going on, and then let's see what's happening. But now I want to find out from Reverend, if there was no government bailout, what would have been the route to making customers or clients or investors whole? And what will be the future like? As with the banking and SDIs, we have the Ghana Deposit Protection Corporation. What do we have for the capital markets industry also? So these two questions, Rev.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. So I think earlier on I had explained that for the fund management companies, we had to use the liquidation pathway. So to answer your question directly, assuming there was no government bailout, then it would have meant that the clients or the investors in this case would have to wait for the official liquidator to realize assets and then pay dividends to them. And actually, let me say that when she met them, she explained to them that the government bailout was optional. In other words, if you didn't want to sign on, you could wait and then join the queue, so that whatever she would find, then she would pay dividends out of that. So that would have been the option. The fact is that we do not have, an investor protection fund. But actually, Philip, last year we already started work on that. So we have done a concept paper for the setting up of an investor protection fund, especially for the asset management industry. Okay. If you go to the stock exchange or trading in shares or securities, there's a fidelity fund that is created by the law that is there to provide, if you like, some cushion for challenges that could occur within that space. But when it comes to the asset management industry, we are yet to institute the investor protection fund. And actually, that's one of the things that we identified last year, and we are going to push to establish, because going forward, we need to have that safety net so that, it could provide that cushion. Even though I'll be quick to say, Philip, that, when it comes to investment, it's also important for people to understand that you take risk in order to be rewarded for the risk that you take, okay? So if you take high risk, for instance, let me not say this, but if you invest in shares, the risk is higher than if you invest in fixed income. So if you invest in shares because you have the risk appetite, it means that you'd have done your analysis and you know that, well, you can handle this risk. And actually, our expectation of our fund managers is that they would match the risk tolerance of their clients with the various vehicles that are available. Our expectation of the fund managers is that they must give adequate disclosure of the risk-return trade-off to the client. A lot of that didn't happen in what led to the kind of challenges that we've had to deal with, because a lot of the clients, if you ask them, they had no clue where the fund managers were investing their funds. In fact, some of them, after getting to know where their funds were invested, would say, "Oh, how could this entity do this and do that?" Okay, so we are going to emphasize on the disclosure and the fact that there has to be a clear mandate that is executed, especially if it's a discretionary fund account that you create. With the collective investment scheme that we are going to move the industry to, because we think that the governance structure of collective investment schemes is better and stronger. The scheme particulars are clear. In fact, there's an LI 1695 that also has some limits on what you can do and what you can't do when it comes to the CIS. And that's why we are going to push the CIS as, a credible vehicle that people should use when they think about investment. So we are going to do a lot of all these things, but critically, the Investor Protection Fund, we are going to work to establish it so that it can provide that safety net, because things can go bad.
Do we have any timelines on this investor protection?
It's difficult to put a timeline on it, because there are some other people that you may have to play a role. So, for instance, we have put together the concept paper. We are looking at some sources that would feed into the fund. So you need to do some engagement with all these different stakeholders to be able to crystallize it. So it's difficult to put a timeline on it. But I can tell you that in our 2021 work plan or agenda, it will feature strongly in there, that coupled with investor education, because the run up to the cleanup that we did, it was clear that people didn't understand what they were doing, and they didn't understand that if you are going or chasing rates, high rates, you are actually chasing high risk, because people fail to see that the higher the return, the higher the risk.
Okay, Rev, you've brought into a very important point. I was going to ask about changes or amendments to your act, but I need to emphasize on this. And from anecdotal evidence, I think our financial literacy is weak at best and non-existent at worst. And I'm going to quote from a speech you gave at Gimpa Law Conference somewhere this year. And it says, as a response, the Commission has developed an elaborate investor education plan and will collaborate with other stakeholders, including educational institutions and the Ministry of Education / the Ghana Education Service to ensure a sustained campaign to enhance financial literacy in our country. Now, my quick question here is, how has this been going? And how are we going to situate this in the grand scheme of things? Because I think generally our economic financial literacy in the country is quite low. People may have been educated, they've gone to school, but when it comes to the nitty-gritties of structures and products, they are lost. What are we doing with the literacy, the education, and campaigns like this?
Philip, before I answer your question directly, let me make this comment. So I was talking with a young man, maybe he's not so young now, but he's somewhere in Canada. And before he moved, he was kind of involved in this financial literacy to some extent. And when he moved out there, then he sent me a message and said, well, we know what, if we think that financial literacy is bad in Ghana, it's not any better in some of these developed countries. Yeah. That's not to say that we should pat ourselves on the back and do nothing. I'm just trying to say that while our situation is bad, it's not uncommon because people do not take the time to really understand. They think, oh, it's something for the professionals. But what we intend to achieve is to try and take the concept of understanding finance or understanding financial markets or financial products, take it, down the lowest level in terms of the academic structure. We know that there are issues to do with curriculum and all of that, but the idea is, like you rightly said, is to engage the GES Ministry of Education to see to what extent we can introduce, something in the curriculum that would at least introduce people, not giving them knowledge to become professionals, but to give them an idea, to make it fun for those, much lower, so that they can grow with it. So that is one of the things that we hope to achieve. We are yet to get into the engagement with the GES and the Ministry of Education. We have done the paper, but we are yet to do that engagement. And our posture has been having to deal with the correction in the asset management industry, and then after that build on, because people told us that, look, if you have not sorted us out in terms of our locked up money, don't come and try and talk to us and educate us about anything, because it will create noise, so it won't trickle down. So we are looking to pushing the agenda of investor education from 2021 in particular. We'll be using a lot of social media to do that. Then another important intervention that we have identified is using or creating investment clubs in the educational institutions, because they can gather, the students, they can organize sessions where then there'll be that education. And then engagement with various faith-based organizations, and then various, other societies. I think, how is this group called?
Which one is that?
Oh, there's this.
Is it an investment group?
No, there's not an investment group. It's just escaped. But basically, these various Rotary, I think, Rotary Club. Yes, Rotary. So these types of clubs that we can find avenues to do the engagement. We'll be doing things like road shows for especially those who may not be very literate in English, you'll be looking at how to translate, whatever material that we'll produce, whether it's a skit or an ad, whatever, to produce it in the local language. Go to the regions, take a weekend. You hit some faith-based organizations. You go to some schools. You go to some stations. Just to ramp up the knowledge around the system. So there are a number of things that we have identified in the plan, but Philip, you agree with me that it's a money exercise.
Yeah.
Actually, this plan, we did it last year, and there was some provision under the World Bank, program for financial inclusion that had a component for education. And that's financial education or financial literacy. And it covered all the regulators in the financial sector, so NIC, BOG, NPR, and SEC. Just that the processes to have the release of the money are a bit elaborate, and so we couldn't have the release of the money to begin the process. But we are far advanced, and probably before the end of the year, because of the elections, we might not do much. But I am very determined about investor education. I mean, if you know my past, one of the things I've been passionate about has been investor education. So we are going to really execute.
I think you've written 2 books.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So we are going to really push the agenda in 2021.
Okay. Rev, another important aspect with our conversation, and I'm sure our time is fast running, but I'll fit them in. Your Securities Industry Act, I know we came from the PNDCL 333. We've had this one. There's been an improvement. But it seems that you still don't have, and with the greatest of respect, all the powers you need to fully operate. I remember at one of an event somewhere in Labadi, you spoke about the penalty units that are in the law, that they are not very pecuniary and punitive enough, if I remember. Are we going to see some amendments to your act to give you guys more powers to, for lack of a better word, operate like BOG? Because BOG seems to be the big boy in the system, and then the rest of you are following Big Brother and you're like little ones. Are we going to see an amendment to your act to give you guys more powers, change more things, give you guys more vim to carry out your activities?
Let me say that we have actually, from last 2018, thereabout, even before I got the commission, because the Act 929/26, it took a while. So by the time it was passed, there were a few things that had changed. So the team had actually started noting some areas that require some enhancements. Let me put it that way. So we have tasked our legal team to do that compilation of areas that need enhancement to make it easier. So, for instance, let me give an example. When it comes to the operation of Ponzi schemes, the ability to quickly go in and even freeze assets, those are things that, because it's also a real threat. Until today, you'll be surprised the kind of alerts that we receive at the Commission of people offering all kinds of ridiculous things and people falling for it. And so we are looking at how to beef up the powers that we have in that regard. Now, I think that this revocation that we did has made people to make the point that, your act is not strong and all of that. I think I would like to situate it this way. I did say that in the act there's a provision for broker dealers or broker dealer firms for us to appoint a receiver. Okay, but when it comes to fund management companies, that provision is not there. Okay, so one of the key amendments that we'll be looking to introduce will be to provide, if you like, a more comprehensive framework for resolving failed entities. So we have something, but we need to make it more comprehensive, okay, so that we can, when companies fail, we can deal with them. But in terms of the how punitive the penalties are, yes, it's true. The maximum penalty in the Act for now is 4,500 penalty units. One penalty unit is 12 cedis. So it means that the maximum that you can exact will be 54,000, and that definitely is not it's not punitive enough. But I can tell you that we have initiated an amendment on one of the sections that would broaden the range when it comes to penalty unit. So it's one step to making the ability for us to exact more punitive, penalties there in our, regulatory toolkit. But there are also other things that we can do, which maybe people are not aware of. So, for instance, we can disqualify people from operating in the industry, and I can say that we are looking to do so from this exercise that we have undertaken. We are going to disqualify people. The Act empowers us to do that for a period of time, or for a long time. So we are going to look at how to do that. I mean, and actually we'll demonstrate that this right is also there. Then there's a criminality bit. There are some provisions in the Act. So, for instance, if you are a director or an executive officer, if you're looking at Act, and you fail to, for instance, ensure that your firm complies with the Act, you can go to prison. So it's not only the exacting an administrative penalty, the fine. So it's not like the Act that we're working with doesn't have, it can't bite. But we are just saying that we need to enhance and if you like, introduce some other elements that would give us broader powers, okay, to execute the mandate that we have.
Okay. Rev, there's so much to talk about. Unfortunately, time will not allow us, but I think we have just about 3 minutes to go. I'm going to ask you this, and I'm sure you've heard it over and over and over again. With all that has gone on, a lot of people, in fact, during the course of the day, people I don't know from anywhere have hit me up on social media asking me to ask you so many questions. Unfortunately, I can't ask all the questions. Some of them I've weaved them into our discussion. But Rev, with all that has gone on in the fund management industry, the revocation of licenses and then its concomitant effects, does the Commission still stand by the action it's taking, that this was the right and this is the right action for the industry going forward, despite what has gone on with regards to the other effects?
I would say so, because the fact of the matter, Philip, is that, one, there were a number of these clients of these firms who, for maybe 2 years, even before, 3 years before we came up with the revocation decision, their monies were locked up. Actually, out of the 53 firms when we did the revocation, 21 of them had effectively closed shop. So it was only 32 that were in operation. 21 had closed shop. So it's not an issue of, you could have done something different. Actually, before I got to the Commission, the team that had done some work on the asset management industry, there was a study that had, picked up on all these trouble spots and emerging risk within the asset management industry. And, I'm aware that as a regulator, sometimes you do some engagement and you allow the firms to amend their ways, or you give them an opportunity to right their wrongs, okay? But it gets to a point where you have to pull the plug, because at the end of the day, our mandate is to protect investors. Our mandate is to protect the integrity of the market. So if someone is sitting on toxic assets and you don't take the action, what will happen is that new money will come, and excuse me to say, it might end up as some kind of a glorified Ponzi scheme, because you take in order to be able to pay other people their monies, when they demand. So it's an exercise that had to be done to bring some sanity within the asset management industry. I know that it has hit some people hard, and I know that, like you said earlier on, I've received a lot of
even today I received a lot of messages.
A lot of it. But the issue is that, if we hadn't taken this step, what would have become of investors whose monies were locked up? What would have become of investors who would walk to these firms with new money? So it would be good money being thrown after bad money. Indeed, some of the investors even said, "Oh, you should have alerted us long enough. We wouldn't have taken our money there, because some of us, we took our money a month or a few weeks before you did the revocation." So if you look at it from that perspective, you understand that it had to be done, because these firms were really in distress.
Rev, unfortunately, we have to come to the end of this, but I want to say a very big thank you. There's more we need to do on this.
We can do a part 2.
Very, 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 very good. So that's Reverend Ogbarmey Tetteh, Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. My name is Nanfuri. The show Spotlight Business on MX24. I want to say a big thank you to all of you for joining us. We couldn't exhaust all the issues. The capital market issues are a lot. Reverend has promised us a part 2. I'll do that for you, and then we'll get him again to take us through some of the issues. But in the meantime, please keep your eyes and ears glued on the SEC website and the Registered Journal also, if you have been affected, and some answers will come out from there. But I think the overarching mission here is to have patience for this, because this is a very long issue. So I want to say a very big thank you to all of you, and I wish you a very good night.